Okay, Monday, GoDaddy, as I mentioned, had a denial of service attack, which they said the next day, Tuesday, which was yesterday, no, we just had some corrupt tables in our networking equipment. Okay. Right. So, I did not know that something very relevant to that whole thing happened on Thursday and Friday of last week. So Thursday, Friday, something happened that is very related to what happened on Monday with GoDaddy. I didn't know about the Thursday and Friday thing till someone messaged me today to say, hey, check this out. And there's two separate stories regarding what I'm going to tell you about Thursday and Friday, last Thursday and Friday. Without even knowing that, I said in my video, they are going to use this event to start pushing cybersecurity legislation. If this isn't big enough and they still can't get it to pass, there'll be an event that they can then say, see, we told you we needed this, and look what happened. And man, imagine if it was over in, I don't know, Chicago, near the Sears Tower, where the CME group is, the Comex, those boys. Hey, the internet got destroyed over here. We told you we needed this legislation passed. Now we can't trade commodities because they can't deliver gold and silver. That's the real reason. Aside from that, I just basically mentioned cybersecurity bill coming your way very soon. Around a month ago, the Senate defeated the cybersecurity bill. Republicans in the Senate, believe it or not. And again, Republican, Democrat, doesn't matter. I probably shouldn't even mention what party because it doesn't matter. But they did not let that pass. So a month ago, they tried to pass it through, didn't quite pass. Thursday and Friday of just this past week, a lot of talk about we really need it, it's badly, there's this, is that coming, blah, 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 we expect this, blah, blah, blah. And then Monday morning, ooh, cyber threat took place at GoDaddy. Even though GoDaddy has since then said, no, it was just some corrupt tables. Sure, that's what you're going to say. You don't want to let everybody, the 5 million customers you have, know that we somehow got a denial of service attack in which a company like us should have easily prevented. A joke. And we still got hit by it. We can't dare let our people know, our customers, because then they'll be leaving us by the millions to go somewhere else. So we'll just say it was a little networking problem. We've since fixed it and everything's okay. Right, that makes more sense, GoDaddy. So here's the stories from Thursday and Friday prior to that Monday coming up when this happened at GoDaddy. The White House is circulating a draft of an executive order aimed at protecting the country from cyber attacks, the Hill has learned. Executive order? Oh, you mean we tried to go through Congress like the Constitution demands, and that didn't work. We'll just write an executive order. So much for the Constitution, so much for democracy, so much for voting, so much for Congress within itself voting on whether to pass a law. We'll just write an executive order. Wow. The draft proposal, which has been sent to relevant federal agencies for feedback, is a clear sign that the administration is resolved to take action on cybersecurity even as Congress remains gridlocked on legislation that would address the threat. The draft executive order would establish a voluntary program where companies operating critical infrastructure would elect to meet cybersecurity best practices and standards crafted in part by the government, according to two people familiar with the document. And what else was in the document? You know, the stuff they add that has nothing to do with that takes more freedoms away. Can we look at that, please? The concept builds off of a section in the cybersecurity bill from Senator Joe Lieberman that was blocked last month by Senate Republicans who called it a backdoor to new regulations. The draft has undergone multiple revisions and is brief, spanning no more than 5 pages. It is still being worked on and is subject to change, the people familiar with the draft stressed. Right, so what's on those 5 pages? You've mentioned 2 sentences. What's on all 5 pages? That's what I want to see. A new draft of the executive order is expected to be shared with agencies this next week. Meaning this week we're on right now. Because this was from last Thursday or Friday. Oh, but the public can't see it. Only agencies. What was that thing Obama was saying about transparency and all that stuff? And every time a bill comes up, I'm going to place it on for a few days for everyone to see before we sign it. Well, you know what? Hey, hold on. He's right. He didn't lie. This isn't a bill. This isn't a bill. This is an executive order. And he didn't clarify if executive orders, well, he'll put those on the table a couple days before he passes them himself. So yeah, you know what? He didn't lie. I take that back. White House counterterrorism advisor John Brennan first floated the idea of an executive order in a speech a few days after the bill failed a month ago. He said the White House would consider taking action on the executive level to ensure key infrastructure such as the power grid, water supply, and transportation networks are secure. Really? And those are on the internet. Why? Wouldn't you have a subsystem, your own internal government or whatever internet that no other internet can connect to? Without having to write legislation, executive orders to undermine the Constitution and spy on Americans more than you already are. Yeah, that'd be too easy. Here's a story from Reuters, same time. Other nations are increasingly employing cyber attacks without any sense of restraint, a top U.S. cybersecurity official said on Friday, citing reckless behaviors that neither the United States nor the Soviet Union would have dared at the height of the Cold War tensions. This must be a red alert, DEFCON, DEFCON 1 or whatever the highest was, at 1 or 5, whatever, highest DEFCON level. Citing reckless behaviors that neither the U.S. or the Soviet Union would have even thought about doing to each other during the height of the Cold War. This must be a red alert severe thing we've got to take care of. Well, who is this cybersecurity official? This person must be, this must be something going on underneath the radar that's just devastating to the United States. I've got to hear about this. Deborah Plunkett of the secretive National Security Agency. Oh, no wonder why they're using words like that. Whose responsibilities include protecting U.S. government computer networks, predicted that Congress would pass long-stalled cybersecurity legislation within the next year. So Deborah Plunkett, National Security Agent in charge of, well, one of the things, protecting the U.S. government computer networks, works for the NSA, has predicted in advance that Congress will pass a currently stalled cybersecurity legislation within the year. Let me rewind my brain for a second, go back just a little bit back into history. 9/11 happened, right there. 9/11 happened, Patriot Act was passed in a matter of days. Massive legislation, huge. How was it written in a matter of days? They said it wasn't. It was on the standby, Pentagon, NSA, whatever, cabinet on standby in case such an event occurred. Even though no one on the face of the earth could ever imagine such an event occurring, those guys did imagine an event like that occurring and had the absolute perfect, God must have came down and wrote the Patriot Act. I mean, it was flawless with what they needed to combat terrorism, which includes spying on the rest of us without our knowledge, without our say-so, detaining us without any kind of trial, any kind of court, jury, throwing you in Guantanamo Bay, even when they say we've found that this guy needs to be released, and the administration even says go ahead and release him. No, they'll still keep him there. And I just heard a guy died a few days ago. He was due to be released in a few days after over a year plus or 3 years or something like that. They already said let him go. No, because Guantanamo Bay, thanks to the Patriot Act, we can detain people indefinitely. The beacon of freedom, the hope of the world, the role model of the world's democracies. United States, where we detain people, even our own citizens, without due process of law, by the words coming out of any top administrative official's mouth, such as, I think you had something to do with terrorism somehow. Why? Because I used the word 9/11? Yep. Throw them in jail. Secret prison. Etc. So, to continue, lawmakers failed this summer to overcome disputes over cybersecurity regulations for private firms such as utilities. Plunkett, the head of NSA's Information Assurance Directorate, the agency's cyber defense arm, told a university audience that, quote, "We're starting to see nation-state resources and expertise employed in what we would characterize as reckless and disruptive and destructive behaviors," end quote. Even during the Cold War, blocs of nations allied with the United States or the Soviet Union worked to undermine each other, but still operated with a sense of restraint, she said. Some of today's national cyber security actors don't seem to be bound by any sense of restraint, she told a forum at the Polytechnic Institute of New York University. These cybersecurity threats must be the top national security threat. Congress, you better call your congressman right now and tell him please pass this legislation. Because as this lady predicted, you will pass it. And I'm predicting you'll pass it within a year. What does that mean? There's going to be an event in which we already have the proper legislation that we want passed, and you will pass it. Because if you don't, we'll make this event happen like 9/11 to get our legislation passed. And our legislation is 10 times worse than the one you guys are stalling on right now. So keep stalling, because we want this one passed and we need just the right event. And GoDaddy was just a tiny, tiny speck of sand of a taste of what the next big event will be if they don't get legislation passed. Take it, mark it down, write it, remember it, I don't care. This will happen. As she predicted, I will predict. We will have cybersecurity legislation shoved down our throats. Whether they pass it or not is disputable, but if history's my guide, fear works wonders in knocking down a nation's banking, whatever, internet infrastructure somehow, for any length of time, is more than enough to make the citizens demand that you pass the cyber legislation that will be removing even more rights and freedoms from those very people who are demanding the protection. Now you seem to realize why our founding fathers, I think it was Thomas Jefferson, was quoted as saying, it may not have been him, it was one of the, I think, the founding fathers. Those who wish for, what was saying? Those that are willing to give up freedom for security deserve neither. Not word for word, but that's what the phrase was. Those who are willing to give up freedom for security deserve neither. I didn't make that word up. That's not my phrase. It's one of your founding fathers who drafted the Constitution as best as they possibly could to stop the crap that's happening today and for the last God knows how many years. Now, they'll just write an executive order. Forget this piece of paper and passing it around Congress and having a vote. That takes too long. Just have the president create his own laws and call it an executive order. And when we tell everybody to do this in the National Security Agency and the FBI, you want your job, don't you? Yeah? You see what the economy is like right now, don't you? Yeah? You want to still continue to get paid, don't you? Yeah? Then don't you ever say, what about the Constitution, or what about right and wrong? You just follow orders and do as you're told. We have an executive order that allows us to undermine everybody's rights in the entire country. You just do what you're told, Mr. FBI agent, Mr. CIA, Mr. Secret Service, Mr. whoever. And you know what? As history's my guide again, I think they'll comply and follow orders. And when the country is overthrown and the whole cycle starts over again, all those people found to have just been following orders will have hell to pay. You think they would look at history and say, I don't want that to happen to me. But nobody ever seems to say, this will happen in my time. It's always the mindset of, there's no way this is going to happen to me. Not now, not in my time. It cannot and will not happen. And yet every freaking time in history, it does. man, why don't people wake up? And I'm talking about FBI and military people, whoever, government employees. Oh, I don't want what happen here. We've got too much control. You're a speck of sand in a 5-gallon bucket worth of population. You are a couple of specks of sand in a 5-gallon bucket full of sand, and that 5-gallon bucket of sand represents the population. And you think you'll just be able to maintain control. You might for a little while, because that's what usually happens. And then it gets overthrown, and the people take over and put something new in its place. So I'm trying to help people not get involved in any of that by buying silver. It's one simple solution. Because as all that happens, you may want to get involved, and if you do, then you do. But I can find a way to where you don't have to, because you have plenty of money to deal with the problems that are going to be coming, which will be completely centered around your ability to have money and buy things to eat for your family and such, and pay for things, and try to maintain any piece of your lifestyle that you enjoyed before the big crash that's coming. All you have to do is buy silver. It's going to skyrocket beyond anyone's belief. And when that happens, then you can cash out and take the paper fiat currency and go buy whatever you want. Pay off all your debt, pay off whatever you want. While everyone else who lost everything is out complaining, out trying to overthrow the government or whatever they plan on doing, you can sit at home safely, counting your money, looking at your house that you now own, looking at whatever, everything's good over here. It's a shame you people didn't listen to me on YouTube and all these other people, etc. That's what the mindset's going to be. Anyways, take care, and remember, cybersecurity legislation is coming, and it will be passed. And if it's not passed by Congress, then executive order will pass it. And if they don't pass it by executive order for some reason, which there's nothing to pass, you just write it. If they don't do that, then there will be an event that knocks down the grid and says, see, we told you we needed this. And unfortunately, it's not going to be some foreign terrorist. It is an internal terrorist that causes these problems so that they can get their ruthless dictatorship laws passed. So that when they finally pull the trigger, no more voting, no more this, we're a national martial law now because of such and such. You can't complain, you can't do anything, because all of the laws have been passed in advance. All the executive orders are done in advance. They didn't break the law by doing what they just did. Just like history shows Hitler did, and Joseph Stalin, and Mussolini, and everybody else. But not this time, not in America. What are you talking about? We're doing and passed the same laws those same guys did. We may have a different name for the law, but it's almost word for word the same. You really should go look at some of the stuff that was passed in the past. Anyways, take care.